WISE is dedicated to advancing innovation in education for a more sustainable and inclusive future. These efforts are at the heart of Qatar's and the world's vision for education. Investing in education is now a global priority. Investing in access and quality, investing for all and for impact. Global connectivity and rising aspirations create new opportunities. How can we encourage and sustain system-level change in education? In some countries, teaching is a highly valued profession. How can we emulate this everywhere and attract, develop and retain top talent for teaching? Early childhood education is a key predictor for success in school and in other spheres of life. How can we make it universally available through effective policies and practices? Many young people seek an education to secure opportunities for meaningful and rewarding employment. How do we ensure that education systems equip people with the skills and mindsets they need? Positive change in education can have far-reaching impact. Education systems that incorporate entrepreneurship help prepare young people to create their own job opportunities and to thrive even in conditions of uncertainty. Education systems that focus on the overall well-being of a child lay the foundations for happier and healthier societies. Education systems that are open to new models of financing provide greater choice and help meet the rising aspirations of parents and their children. Education systems that learn the lessons of past reform efforts can, like Qatar, aspire to set new standards in education for their regions and the world at large. As teachers, students, policymakers and entrepreneurs, we are all partners on the journey to build a more sustainable and inclusive future through innovation in education. WISE 2015, Investing for Impact. WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. Salam alaikum and a warm welcome to this year's WISE. A special welcome to Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser. My name is Mishal Hussain, and it's my privilege to be with you as your guide to the 2 days that lie ahead of you here at WISE. And WISE for me is a unique and a rather special event. Special first because of its scale. There are more than 2,000 of you delegates from more than 121 countries. Also special because of the range of voices that it brings together: teachers, learners, non-profit organizations, the private and the public sector. But most of all special because of its spirit. What unites us all is a belief that education can and should be done better, and that we need to think big in order to achieve that. This year, there are 3 key themes at WISE. The first follows on from the education part of the UN's new Sustainable Development Goals. What sorts of investments will be required in order to deliver them? The second is education and the economy, linking learning with employment and thinking about the future of higher education. And the third is about the I in WISE, innovations big or small, either already proving their worth or worth investigating. This year, for the first time, WISE is also releasing a series of reports addressing the key themes in education. And many of you have already helped to define those themes by taking part in the WISE opinion polls conducted ahead of the summit. One of the questions asked simply what the global education agenda should prioritize. The options were quality of education, access and inclusion, bridging the global skills gap, and girls' education. And we found that quality and access are the biggest issues. Another question focused on higher education, asking whether in today's world a university degree was important. Interestingly, a majority of you thought that a university degree was not essential in today's world. And just one more, a question on what is to you the main roadblock to innovation in the education sector. And the majority of you, perhaps not surprisingly, thought that the main roadblock was a lack of institutional support. That poll is still live on the WISE website, so if you'd like to take part, you still can. A quick word now on how to take the conversations beyond Doha. We'll be using a series of hashtags throughout WISE. The main one is WISE15, and then there will be others for individual sessions. Your Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, those of you familiar with WISE will know how it champions great educators. Every year, one in particular is singled out to receive the WISE Prize for Education for an outstanding contribution to education. This year's laureate will be revealed in a moment. But first, please welcome the founding force behind WISE, chairperson of the Qatar Foundation and UNESCO's envoy on basic and higher education. Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser. Your Highness.
Assalamu alaikum.
Peace of God be upon you. I would like to welcome you here as you gather once again under the umbrella of the World Innovation Summit for Education. I would also like to welcome the First Ladies with us today, Mrs. Michelle Obama from the United States of America and Mrs. Sylvia Obongo Ondimba from Gabon. And I appreciate the attendance of all of you on the occasion of the World Innovation Summit for Education. Since its inception, WISE has become a global forum and a global platform. And this year we are looking into sustainable development and inclusive development through education. Before I start my address, in which I have tried to analyze the state of education in the Arab world, allow me to shift to English so that we can share together and so that we can ensure nothing is lost in translation.
So, as you have just heard, I have switched to English to make sure we are all tuned into the same wavelength without static or interference. Let me begin by confessing. In this region, we are not only paralyzed, but going backwards at the speed of light. Ironically, had we just been going backwards, we would be better off. For example, prior to the first Gulf War in 1991, Iraq's primary enrollment rate was at 100%. In fact, Iraq was awarded the UNESCO International Literacy Prize in 1982. And today, a recent UNESCO report estimates there are at least 3 million primary-age children out of school in Iraq and Syria alone. I feel both sad and bitter, with a heavy weight on my conscience when I remember the faces of Iraqi scientists and educators who came to me after the occupation of Iraq, bleeding for protection from assassination. This was a period when many educators were intentionally targeted in an active attempt to destabilize the nation and disrupt the educational infrastructure. We formed a committee for the protection of Iraqi scientists, and we did everything we could, down to providing them with bulletproof vests. But later, we lost communication with them. And one by one, they were terminated. This encouraged us to try even harder. So in 2010, a coalition of nations, which included the state of Qatar, introduced a UN resolution on the right to education in emergency situations at the UN General Assembly. It affirms the human right to education and access to it during crisis and conflict, and urges states to fulfill their obligations under international law to respect civilians and not to attack teachers, students, and education facilities. Security Council Resolution 1998 was adopted in July 2011, which makes attacks on schools and hospitals a trigger violation for the UN's monitoring and reporting mechanism for children and armed conflict. Such a violation can result in armed forces or groups being added to the UN Secretary General's list of shame and penalized accordingly. But what are we doing to enforce these resolutions? Why do we watch perpetrators get away without even slightest penalty? Let me be frank. It is not only Iraq or even Syria and Palestine which are targets of attacks on education. Between 2009 and 2012, there were at least 30 countries which were heavily affected by attacks in schools. So, this is a global problem. And one step in the solution to this problem is ensuring that we have up-to-date, reliable, and verified data which we can use to better plan our intervention programs to support children living in conflict zones and to help them pursue their education. Holding perpetrators, whether state or non-state actors, accountable and forcing them to take full responsibility of their deeds, no doubt, will serve as a deterrent to others. Therefore, mechanisms to enforce this accountability through both financial reparations and punishment from the international community of nations must be seriously considered and put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, education is under attack. The issue of accountability and punishment for attacks on education must be considered in the implementation of the framework for action of the new Education Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG 4, agreed upon last September. As we meet here today, another meeting is taking place in Paris to approve this action plan. Its adoption must result in real chances to consolidate our commitment and efforts to find new practical methods capable of achieving our priorities. And one thing we know for certain. The SDGs seem like a dream in MENA, where we experience the nightmarish sensation of falling backwards, where our schools have been turned into cemeteries, and our students and teachers into refugees. Corpses washing up on European shores. We are desperately failing the children in vulnerable situations to which SDG makes reference. In fact, we are failing to meet our promises to all the world's children and youth when it comes to education goals. We have an unfinished agenda that we must be held accountable for. On last count, UNESCO estimates there are a minimum of 124 million children from primary to lower secondary levels still out of school, with 59 million of these being of primary age. Yet, this data predates the refugee crisis of the last few years. So we believe that the actual numbers are significantly higher. All of us here believe that investment in education means investment in its medium and long-term outcomes. Linkage between education and economic developments have long since been established. As we know, UNESCO estimates that every day invested in primary education generates $10 to $15 in economic returns. We also know that every extra year of schooling can add 0.37% to country's GDP and 10% on average to an individual's earning. We need politicians to understand the power of education for their own countries, for their economies. Political will is required, as is a joint sense of moral and historic responsibility to protect and invest in education. Ladies and gentlemen, after this look at our bleak and dark present, let us shine a light of opportunity on the future of the world's youth. The recent adoption of SDGs 4 can provide, if we are serious, an historic opportunity to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. The targets of this goal focus on all levels of education, including both primary and secondary, thereby allowing us to place special attention on the continuity between different stages of the educational process. EAC, Educate a Child, launched in 2012, took up the mandate to develop international partnerships in order to address the problems of lack of quality educational opportunities for out-of-school primary-age children. EAC works in partnership and emphasizes innovation, scale, and sustainability to facilitate the fulfillment of children's right to education. I am well aware that education journey does not and should not end with primary school, and that there is a substantial dropout rate as children transition from primary to secondary education. In fact, we know that in low-income countries, only 1 in 3 adolescents finish lower secondary school, as compared to 5 in 6 in upper middle-income countries. Therefore, it is necessary to advocate for and build effective mechanisms to ensure that smooth transition from primary to secondary education is a fundamental condition to achieving the basic education targets of SDG 4. In recognition of this opportunity and to meet the challenge of SDG 4 holistically, AC is eager to share its research, experience, and expertise with potential partners who are willing to complement our work by providing quality post-primary education to those children who complete our programs. We encourage new partners to work with us to guarantee that world's children who complete primary education have access to quality secondary education. Ladies and gentlemen, though I have confessed my disappointment, grief, and anger, I'm still hopeful that we can build a bright and better future. That's why our Young Innovators program holds a dear place in my heart, because through this program, we're attracting exceptional Arab youth and offering them the resources and the environment necessary to reach their potential in their different creative fields, a chance that we lost several times in the past. And we are fortunate to have some of these young people here with us at WISE. This brings me to a moment I look forward to every year, the announcement of the WISE Prize for Education. Our WISE Prize for Education laureates, established in 2011, embodies the spirit of WISE. They are tireless advocates for the right to education. This year, laureates is distinguished by her determination to bring education to her fellow citizens in the most adverse conditions of war and occupation, from refugee camps to secret night schools, and often at a great personal risk. She established a network of organizations that provide general education as well as public health education. While her work focuses on girls and women, it also benefits boys and men. Millions have benefited from her optimism. I will leave you now to Michelle Hussein to introduce you to this year's WISE Laureate winner, and thank you for allowing me to share my heart with you today.
Thank you, Your Highness. The 2015 WISE Prize for Education is awarded to Sakina Yaqoob. We will welcome Dr. Yaqoob on stage in just a moment to receive her medal from Her Highness. But first, let's take a look at her work over so many years in Afghanistan.
Since I was a child, my father really believed that education can change my life. He wanted every of his children go to school. Didn't make difference if it's a girl or a boy. Whatever I accomplish is dedicated to my father.
Today in Afghanistan, Dr. Sakina Yaqoob is known as the mother of education. Over the last 20 years, she has been working relentlessly to rebuild her country's educational landscape, devastated by decades of war.
If anything that I want to really transform this society is not going to be through gun or through a tank, it's going to be through pen and through books and through education.
It all began in the early 90s when Sakina Yaqoob started working in Afghan refugee camps in Pakistan. There she trained teachers, opened schools for children, and learning centers for women. With her own money, she created the Afghan Institute of Learning in 1995 to carry on this work. Her first objective was to continue to innovate in teacher training.
You can just let people read and write, but if they do not think, it's not going to solve their problem. So I went after critical thinking. And the only way that you could do that through a good teacher in the classroom. And we did not have that.
روش‌ها و متدایی که از طرف پروفسور سکینه یعقوبی در افغانستان برای اندازی شده و تدابگذاری و بنیادگذاری شده، میگه مقوله مشهوره، میگم بشنوم فراموش میکنم، ببینم یاد میگیرم، انجام دهم میفهمم. وقتی شاگردا از این متد و روش و مواد مفید درسی استفاده کنه، حواس پنجگانه شاگرد فعالیت میکنه، 5 دروازه ورودی مغز شاگردا فعال نگاه داشته میشه. شاگردا چی میشن؟ جسمن و ذهنن فعالیت میکنن. وقتی جسمن و ذهنن فعالیت کردن، آموزش خوبتر و بهتر صورت میگیره.
Sakina Yaqoob also improved access to education in Afghanistan by opening learning centers. They were originally dedicated to the women, with amongst the world's lowest literacy rate. At these centers, women have access to a wide range of opportunities, from reading and writing to university-level classes, as well as income-generating skills.
من فعلا از اول که اینجا آمدم من هیچ یاد نداشتم، حتی سواد کافی من نداشتم. اینجا آمدم برای سوادآموزی شرکت کردم، یکم یاد گرفتم سواد، بعد از اون اقدام کردم برای خیاطی. الان فعلا هم خود مغازه دارم، داخل مغازه به 2 تا شاگرد داریم که بخش اتوکاری و بریش برایش آموزش میدم، یاد میدم. نسبت مثلا اینطوری نماندیم که چشمم بمونه که شوهر مکی پول خرجی بده که ندی.
Education really give you power, status. And these women, I could see that they are smart, they are intelligent, but they didn't have opportunity. And if I could give them that opportunity, that makes me very happy.
Sakina Yaqoob aims at empowering not only women, but also communities as a whole. Learning centers open at the request of community leaders who define their needs, their level of involvement, and then work with her institute to implement the project. Based on this bottom-up approach, education triggers a lasting local transformation.
If you have the community involved, you have a better outcome because they feel this is theirs, they protect, they appreciate, and they work hard on it. The center must be self-sufficient. And once they become self-sufficient, they are empowered, then we go to the next one.
From the very beginning, Sakina Yaqoob has also been offering health services to Afghan people as part of her holistic approach to rebuilding society. More recently, she opened private schools under her own name to provide high-quality, affordable education. She also set up a radio station to deliver her institute's educational content to people living in remote areas. And her future plans include the creation of a television network, as well as a university for women.
My vision for Afghanistan is a free country in a society that everybody is educated. Every single girl must be educated in Afghanistan. That's my dream. I don't have a small dream. My vision is big, have been big, and is going to be big constantly. And I think that there are going to be a day that this country will rise up, and I am looking for that day.
Let's welcome Dr. Yaqoob on stage now, the Wise Prize for Education Laureate. Your Highness. Congratulations, Dr. Yaqoob. And I'd now like to invite the First Lady of the United States to join us on stage. Dr. Yaqoob, tomorrow we will hear the full story of your life's work, but I'd like to invite you to say a few words now. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you very much, Your Highness. It's a great honor and it's a blessing for me to be chosen as the Wise Prize Laureate, especially for education, because that's my life. This is a great moment for Afghanistan, because Afghanistan right now is a tipping point. Our people are suffering, they are in terror, they are oppressed, they are poor, and they are really hopeless. But yet, there came a moment that the light is shining. You know what we can do with this prize. I know with all my heart that we educate more Afghan children, more Afghan women, and we progress their life, no matter what they are facing. No matter what they are facing, they are going to be hopeful and encouraged. Your Highness, thank you very, very much for such a wonderful gift for me. But I am going to dedicate this gift to the Afghan Institute of Learning, Afghan women, Afghan children, and Afghanistan. Thank you.
Dr. Yaqoobi, many congratulations, Dr. Yaqoobi, and I think all of us here wish you all the best for your work. Congratulations, and Your Highness, thank you very much.